So let's talk about a policy shift happening in China that, honestly, seems like a complete contradiction. The government is bringing in a new tax on contraceptives, and it's a move that could really change daily life for millions. Let's get into it and break down what's really going on.
It's a real head-scratcher, right? I mean, for decades, China was pretty much defined by its one-child policy. So why on earth would the government suddenly make it more expensive to prevent a pregnancy? Well, the answer starts with a single number.
13%. As of January 1st, 2024, things like condoms and birth control pills are now hit with a 13% value-added tax. And look, this isn't just some tiny tweak to the tax code. This completely reverses a tax exemption that's been around for 30 years. It's a huge signal of a massive pivot in their national strategy.
And this whole pivot? Well, it has a name. It's a pro-natalist strategy. Put simply, after decades of trying to slam the brakes on population growth, the government is now actively trying to hit the accelerator. This tax is one of the clearest signs we've seen that the old way of thinking is completely out the window.
So why such a dramatic change? To really get why this tax is happening, we first have to understand the demographic crisis that's basically forcing the government's hand.
Get this. In all of 2023, China recorded just 9.54 million births. That's the lowest number since they started keeping records. To really let that sink in, let's just compare it to 10 years ago. Just a decade ago, China had nearly twice that many births. The birth rate has literally been cut in half. That is a staggering drop, and it's the kind of thing that sets off major demographic alarm bells in Beijing.
And you have to understand, this decline isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It has these huge real-world consequences. A rapidly aging population puts immense pressure on social services. A shrinking workforce threatens the very engine of China's economic machine, and for the third year in a row, the country's total population has actually gotten smaller.
So this demographic cliff has forced one of the most dramatic policy U-turns in modern history. We're talking about going from the infamous one-child policy to a desperate push for more children. And the speed of this reversal is just wow. The one-child policy was in place for over 30 years. But in just the last 8, China has gone from a two-child policy to a three-child policy, and now to this all-out pro-natalist push. You can almost feel the sense of urgency coming from the government. What this really means is a fundamental change in the government's entire playbook. The old strategy was all about restriction, limits, penalties. The new strategy is about encouragement, financial incentives, and creating what officials are calling fertility-friendly conditions. It is a complete 180-degree turn from punishment to persuasion.
And that brings us to what they're doing right now. It's so important to see that this new contraceptive tax isn't happening in a vacuum. It's just one small piece of a much, much larger puzzle. This is the new philosophy coming straight from Beijing. They've learned they can't just order people to have more kids anymore. So instead, the goal is to make it easier and more appealing for people to choose to have more children. They're trying to change the whole environment, not just the rules.
So what does fertility-friendly actually mean in practice? Well, it means a whole toolkit of financial goodies. The government is rolling out everything from monthly subsidies and tax breaks for childcare to longer paid leave for new parents. It's a really broad effort to lower the huge financial hurdles to raising a family today.
Now this next part, this might actually be one of the most significant shifts of all. There's this growing recognition that social norms have changed. To try and boost births, policymakers are now easing rules to let unmarried women access maternity benefits, which is a huge step in a traditionally conservative society.
Okay, but this is where the story gets complicated. Because while the government is laser-focused on one crisis, demographics, critics are warning they might be accidentally creating a whole new one in public health.
And this quote from public health experts really hits the nail on the head. They're warning that making contraception more expensive won't affect everyone equally. It's going to hit younger people and those with lower incomes the hardest, the very people who can least afford an unplanned pregnancy.
The big fear here is that these higher costs are going to have some very real and very direct consequences. Public health experts are worried that as cost becomes a bigger barrier, we could see a rise in both unintended pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections. It's a textbook example of a policy having some serious and potentially dangerous unintended side effects.
And that leaves us with this final critical question. China is caught between a rock and a hard place here, between two massive challenges. In its urgent race to boost the birth rate and secure its economic future, it's taking a huge gamble. The real question is whether the solution to one massive problem will end up creating an entirely new one.